Hello, YouTube Pipers. Double O Pipe here, aka Rick. Cup of chaw. Next to the last cigar is an Ashton Heritage Puro Sol. And I will use my little clipper here to cut a sliver off the tip. Not a bad cut, I guess. My flamethrower doesn't work. It works for about 10 seconds. So I'll use this. I hope y'all's week has been going well. I guess mine has. I made it over for Geezer Day at the grocery store so that I got my man, that's just not the old cigarette spit. Get that tobacco off your tongue. That's got a bit of sweetness to it there. Back of my nose and my throat weren't scraped raw by the smoke. That's a good feature. Ashton Heritage. That's not bad at all. Any of you remember how you learned how to swim? Hmm? Well, my parents wouldn't let me go with the kids when they went down to the Stono River to swim. Because they were afraid I'd drown. So I said, well, when are you going to teach me how to swim? And my mother said, I don't know how to swim. I can't teach you how to swim. I said, well, I need to learn so I can go with my friends to the river. She said, I really don't want you to go to the river. I said, Mom, I can't keep ducking my friends when they say, let's go to the river. They'll start calling me chicken. Or going, you can't swim? What's the matter with you? And I don't want to be that boy. I want to be able to swim. So she said, all right, I'll talk to your grandmother and see what we can figure out. Now, my grandmother worked at the Y. That's why she said she'd talk to her about it. Excuse me. She worked behind the counter and fixed hamburgers and milkshakes and all the things that you get from a fry grill and people stayed at the Y, so she had regular customers, and so she would know how to find out if you could go to the Y to take swimming lessons. So she talked to whoever was in charge, the director of the Y, whoever, I don't know, manager, I don't know what you would call them. And she came back and told my mother he can go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday around 10 o'clock. He can get in and they'll teach him how to swim. She said, well, how's he going to get to town? I can't take him to town. Can you take him to town? She said, no, you'll just have to take the bus. Now, the bus ran I don't know whether it was every hour or every 2 hours, because it made a round trip from where I was, would be a round trip going into town all the way and then coming back to that spot. Well, I'm thinking it was every hour because I don't think she had too many stops around. But my mother asked her, "You think he'll be safe taking the bus?" And I think the lady who drove the bus, because it was a lady, I think her name was Inez. And I'm sure my grandmother knew her. She knew everybody. And I'm sure she talked to her to say, would you please watch out for my grandson? We plan to send him into the Y on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays so he can learn how to swim. And I'm sure she said yes. Very friendly lady. Everybody in the terrace knew her. That the terrace was the general area of where I lived and where the grammar school was. It's hard to draw this. It's not as free drawing as I would have thought it had been, especially with that size of cut on there. Still not a bad tasting cigar, though. I like this one probably better than any of the others I've tasted yet. And it's an Ashton Heritage. It seems to me like it's too long to be a Robusto, so I don't know what you would call it. Somebody set me straight on the Lancer that I was smoking the other day. I think I called it a Lance. I don't know. Anyway, got everything set. Bus driver was going to kind of watch out for me because I was in fourth grade when this was happening. I was what, 10? About 10. It was a different time back then. We didn't worry about the things that you have to worry about today. Children were safe because adults gave them leeway and gave them respect. And we had to learn how to grow up. So they gave us, like I said, a lot of leeway. And there weren't, as far as I know, there weren't any predators out there. If they were, he never bothered any of me or my friends. Now, there was a girl who said that there was a guy in the terrace who used to walk behind her and it bothered her, but I don't think he ever did anything. I think he just followed her. That's bad enough, though. And I never knew that back when I was a kid. I learned that later in life when we were talking. Anyway, I keep getting sidetracked. My first day, my first Monday, I was supposed to be at the bus stop at 9, I think, somewhere around there, to get there so I could get into the class, the 10 o'clock class. So what I did is I wore my swimming trunks under my clothes, had a towel, wrapped my underwear up in the towel, rolled that up, and I carried the towel with me and my 20 cents bus fare. Waited, there was a telephone pole there on the corner at the four corners of the golf course. The 17th green was behind me, 18th was in front of me. The tee off, I don't remember which one that was. But anyway, there I stood waiting for the bus, thinking to myself, boy, I'm grown up now. I'm hot stuff. I'm I'm going on a bus by myself. Nobody's with me. Kind of a rite of passage, I guess. Bus stopped in front of me. Bus driver opened the door and said, "Come on, get in." And I jumped on the first step and climbed up to the second and then up to the floor of the bus. She was smiling at me and she said, "You need to put your money in this container here." It was a big metal thing with glass. And I dropped my 2 dimes in and she said, "You're good. Go ahead and sit down. I'll let you know where your stop is." And I said, "Okay, thank you. You know I'm going to the Y?" She said, "Yeah. Yeah, I talked to your grandmama." So there I was on the bus riding into town all by myself. And we got to the bus stop in front of a little store. It was like a cigar store. And it had candy and stuff on the counters and cigars behind the counter, cigarettes. So I got off the bus, jumped down on the pavement or the sidewalk, and she pointed over across the street. It's kind of diagonal from where I was. She said, "Walk up to the corner, cross the street, and the Y is right there. Big brick building. You can't miss it." So I said, "Thank you," and she drove off. I walked up to the corner, walked across, waiting for the light. Walked down, and there was the big brick building that she was talking about. It had YMCA across the top of it. And it was on the other side of the street, which this was just kind of like a little alleyway street, not very many cars or anything on it. And I just ran across. Well, I'll call back. I ran across, climbed the steps, went in the front door. 2 doors, swing forward, swing out, glass, kind of an entrance way, and 2 more doors. Went through, and my grandmother had said that she was on the second floor, or was it the first? I'm trying to think. No, I think it was the first floor. So I turned the corner and walked around, and that little cafe area was right there. It was on the first floor. And I walked up to the thing, put my towel on the counter. I said, "Hey, Grandmama." And she said, "Hey, sugar." "You made it, huh?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. Thank you for talking to the bus driver, Miss Inez." And she said, "That's all right. She looked after you then, didn't she?" "Yes, ma'am. She told me where to get off the bus and everything. And so here I am. Now where do I go?" She said, "Go up those stairs, second floor. You'll see like an office and talk to the lady that's behind the counter in that office. So I said, "Thank you, ma'am." And I walked upstairs and I said, "Hello, my name's Ricky and I'm here to start swimming lessons." She said, "Have you ever swum before?" And I said, "No, ma'am. That's why I'm here." So she said, "Okay." She said, "I see it's already paid for and everything. Go through that door over there. You'll find a locker room. Find yourself a locker. Take off your clothes, get your swimming trunks on, and then go out the door, because at the locker at the end you'll see a door to the right, and that'll open up to the pool." So I once again said thank you and walked over there and went through the door. I heard splashing and yelling and laughing coming from the door she had spoken of, and I found a locker and took the key and undressed, had my swimsuit on already, and put my clothes in the locker, locked it, and put the key in the little pocket that was in the top of the swim trunks. I don't know if they still like that or not. Who knows? And then I walked to the door and looked out, and there was this humongous pool out there. Indoor pool, tiles all around, clean. You could smell I guess it was chlorine in the water, and it just hit you like smacked you in the face. And I walked out there, and somebody said, "Hey, buddy, what's your name?" And I told him my name. He said, "You starting? Is this your first lesson?" I said, "Yes, sir, this is my first one." He said, "Well, come down here to the end. You want to get to the shallow end of the pool." This part was 8 foot, and it had a diving board on it. So I walked around. The wall was there. There were windows higher up. A lot of light. I mean, it was lots and lots of light because the sun was coming through the windows and they had lights up there. And the water was, just moving around, reflections all over the place. It was a new world to me. I'd never seen anything like it. So I walked down to the shallow end. And the guy down there said, "You new?" And I said, "Yeah, my first lesson." He said, "Well, hop in the pool." And I looked to see how much water was in it. It said 2.5 feet. I said, "Okay." So I slid over the side and I don't know, probably up to just above my belly button at the time. I don't know. I wasn't very tall. Never have been. He said, "All right, everybody, calm down and listen to me. We have several of you here." I don't know how many there were, just a bunch of kids like me. "First thing we're going to do is we're going to hold on to the side." There was a splash rail that you held on to. The upper part of the floor was a little higher than that, and you held on to the splash floor. And he said, "I want you to hold on to that and let your legs rise behind you," which I did, which was something I'd never done before because I didn't know how to swim. And he said, "Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to kick. You're just going to kick. Splash, splash, kick, like you're hitting the water with your hands, but you're going to be doing it with your feet underwater." So all of us churned up the water like it was, it was, it was, it wasn't cold, it wasn't warm, it was perfect temperature. And we did that for about 5 minutes. And then he said, okay, I want you all to stand up and to lean forward, facing the middle of the pool here. And he made these motions with his hands. He said, just do this and cup water in your hands. And I want you to try to put your head down and blow air out, and then turn it to the side and breathe in. Blow air out, breathe in. He said, that'll give you a momentum that's straight. If you try to hold your head up, you're going to be kind of wobbling all around. He said, if you can't do that, go ahead and just hold your head up. I couldn't do it. I had to hold my head up. It was too complicated for me. I figured I'd breathe in when my head was down if I did something like that. So anyway, we did that for about 5 minutes. Then he came over, and each person, he would tell them to float on his hands and try both of those things at the same time, kicking your feet and moving your hands. And he kind of held on to us so we wouldn't go anywhere, but so we could just get used to the movements and the coordination of the movements. So we did that for about a half an hour because he had to do each one individually. And then it was about time for the first lesson to be over. So he said, try and remember that and practice it at home. You don't have to be in the water to just practice the movements. He said, do that at home so that next time you come here, it'll feel familiar when you're trying to move through the water. So he said, okay, everybody out of the pool. Go towel down and get dressed, and you can go on home now. I went to my locker and unlocked it and got my towel and put my underwear that I had rolled up in the towel there where I could get to it. And I toweled down, took my bathing suit off and toweled down all the way. Then I put my underwear on and my clothes on and rolled my wet swimsuit up in the towel, just like I had rolled my underwear up to come. I had everything was wet now. Yeah. Went downstairs and ran up to the counter, and my grandmother said, hey, sugar, how was it? Did you do okay? I said, yeah, I think I did. I liked it. I liked the pool. She said, yeah, it's a nice pool, isn't it? I said, yeah. She said, you want anything to eat before you go? Because you got a few minutes before the bus is going to get here. I said, no, I don't think so. If you got something I can have to drink, a Coke or something. She gave me a Coke, and somebody else came up and sat down and said he wanted a hamburger. Make that a cheeseburger. She looked at me and smiled, and she said, okay, sugar, I think you can go on now and get ready for the bus. So I walked outside, across the street, down to the corner, waited for the light to change, crossed the street, down to the little store. This little store had 2 steps down. It was kind of odd. But I went in because the bus wasn't there. And I looked around at the candy, and I bought a box of Hard Rock candy. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that or not. And I went up to the bus stop, and I stood there waiting. Bus came up, door opened. She said, come on in. So I hopped up, and she said, how was your first day at the Y? I said, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Maybe I'll learn how to swim. She said, I'm sure you will. She said, all right, go on back and sit down. Don't want to be standing up while I take off. Well, the other half of her route, she went excuse me, and then we went down Maybank Highway, turned at Stono Shores. It was known as Stono Shores back then. Now it's Riverland Drive. She said, okay, I'll see you Wednesday. And I said, okay, thank you. Thank you for all your help. She closed the door and the bus drove off, and I walked up on the green and across the green and down and over to the edge and through the pine trees that were at the very edge, and got on the road, walked down to my grandmama's house. It was about an hour later that she came home. I guess Clyde, I don't know what Clyde would have been doing, because he didn't go with me, or he didn't have anything to do with me whenever I was learning how to swim. Could have been dealing with his paper route, because he had a paper route about that time, and I used to help him put the rubber bands around the papers when I was there. At any rate, that was my first jaunt on my own as a big boy. And I'm not sure how many weeks the classes were, but they made us swim the length of the pool at the end to make sure that we had learned what we were supposed to learn. And he said, okay, Ricky, take off. And I was swimming, and somebody cannonballed right in front of me. And I thought, well, surely he saw that, and he saw me stop, and he said, what's the matter? I said, you didn't see that guy cannonball in front of me? He said, what guy? He said, if you're gonna pass this course, you better come back here and start over. So I started over, swam the length of the pool and back. And he said, you did okay. We'll pass you. I said, thank you. Now I can go to the river and swim. He said, I don't recommend going to the river. I said, why not? He said, you could drown in that river. I recommend the pool where somebody's watching over you. I said, okay. Anyway, I did pass. I don't think I got a certificate or anything. We just must have gotten something, though, to show my mother and my dad. That's neither here nor there to a kid. Okay, folks. I kind of like this one. It's got a good taste to it. Ashton Heritage Puro Sol. Pure Sun. Let me try that thing one more time. Yeah, that seems to do something. It clears something up whenever you blow through it, and it burns up something coming through. Not bad. I recommend this one. I got one more cigar in my humidor over there. And I think that's going to be the last one for a while, because I'm missing the pipe. This one I liked. The others, not so much. I'll have to remember this one. All right, folks. Appreciate you coming. Appreciate you having a cigar or a pipe and a beverage along with me. Take care of yourselves. God bless you till the next time.